in the 75th year of our independence for honoring two freedom fighters still living in this city as Tagaisal Tamilans N. Sankaraya and R. Nallakkan. Every newspaper had a labor and employment correspondent. Not a single newspaper has a full-time farming correspondent. 2,500 years ago, people were writing about something, which means that it had already evolved over a very long period. If we cannot restore agroecology to our consciousness, believe me, we are in serious trouble.
With immense pleasure that we welcome our speaker, chief guest, Mr. PSainath, to our first TNtalk series. A brief about our chief guest. Palagamuni Sainath was born on 13th May 1957. He is an columnist, author of acclaimed book, Everybody Loves a Good Rod, and The Lost Heroes, Foot Soldier of Indian Freedom. He has extensively written on rural India. His notable interests are poverty, structural inequality, caste discrimination, and farmers' protest. He founded the People's Archive of Rural India, PARI, in 2014, an online platform that focuses on social and economic inequality, rural affairs, poverty, and aftermath of globalization in India. He was earlier the rural affairs editor at The Hindu until his resignation in 2014. He has received many awards, which includes the prestigious Roman Magsaysay Award for Journalism. He is the first reporter in the world to win Amnesty International's Global Award for Human Rights Journalism. His book, Everybody Loves a Good Rod, is a collection of his field reports as a journalist and focuses on different aspects of rural deprivation in India. He has traveled 1 lakh kilometers using 16 forms of transportation and 5,000 kilometers by foot, covering 10 poorest districts of 5 Indian states to the journals about rural India, which has been published into 84 reports across 18 months. Many of them have been subsequently reprinted in his book, Everybody Loves a Good Rod. Sir, thank you for accepting our invitation. We are honored by your presence here, and we are eager to listen your thoughts and perspectives on rural India. We can welcome our distinguished chief guest with your great applause.
I'm honored to be the inaugural speaker of this series. On a personal note, may I begin by thanking the Tamil Nadu government for honoring, and in the 75th year of our independence, for honoring two freedom fighters still living in this city as Tagaisal Tamilans N. Sankaraya and R. Nallakkan. The way the history of our freedom struggle has been written, it's as if it all happened up north, which is simply not true. Resistance to British colonialism was happening in Tamil Nadu and in Bengal long before the first shot was fired in the Hindi heartland. So it's very, very important, and both of them, I'm also personally pleased because both of them are in my latest book, The Last Heroes, Foot Soldiers of Indian Freedom, which will come in Tamil within 4 to 6 months. Now, why do we talk about rural India? Why do we need to talk about rural India was this, I think, how the issue was posed to me. It's very simple. At the base of it, you're talking about 69% of your population. If there is no rural India, there is no India. Yeah? You need to discuss it because it is the largest part, more than 2/3 of our population are from rural India. Though as many of you as administrators and policy makers know, that the census of India does not define rural. It's a very peculiar thing. The census defines what is urban. And the census tells you honestly whatever doesn't fit into the urban definition becomes rural. So in a way, actually, though that's peculiar, it gives us some leeway as activists, as thinkers, as policy makers, as collectors, as executives. It gives some leeway for us to more loosely define and approach things flexibly. But 69% of your population. Second, rural India is without a doubt the most complex part of planet Earth. 780 living languages according to the People's Linguistic Survey of India. Out of those 780 languages, 8 are spoken by more than 50 million human beings, 4 are spoken by more than 80 million, and 1 is spoken by nearly 500 million. At the other end of the spectrum are small Adivasi tribal languages on the verge of disappearing. Just 3-4 years ago, the last speaker of the Jeru language in the Andamans, a lady, she died, the language dies with her. 225 Indian languages have died in the last 50 years, according to the People's Linguistic Survey. That means, for me, I wake up, I don't get intimidated and frightened by multiplicity of languages. I wake up and think I'm a very rich person to be living in a society with so many languages. Yeah. And when you see the rate of decline, 225 languages dead in 50 years, that is on average one language dying every 90 days. It's extremely important to preserve the diversity of our languages and some of the most beautiful and ancient languages in the world. I really hope that policymakers and that executives and all of you who are involved in governance will resist the mindless imposition of one language that is now underway in this country. Do not accept it, do not enforce it, do not accelerate it, resist it. You have a beautiful language, and which is one of the most ancient languages in the world. And, apart from the diversity of languages in this country, there is the diversity of occupations. There are occupations in South Asia, well, there are occupations in Tamil Nadu and Kerala and coastal India, which exist nowhere else in the world. Some schools of weaving, like for instance, today we can't call them toddy tappers because that's been banned, but palm tree climbers, Pannayeri nadars, I mean these occupations are extraordinary. Yeah. I'm not saying that they should continue in the way they are, certainly not. We need to engage with them. Where and in which other occupation does a man climb 5,500 feet in a day, 50 trees 3 times daily, which is greater than the height of the Empire State Building in New York? Okay? Now, the bulk of this workforce is in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and coastal Andhra. The bulk of this workforce. And you have a diversity of, one thing that saddens me, in the diversity of occupations, no nation on earth has so many schools of weaving and pottery as India does. But they are in severe decline and distress. It always pains me when I'm coming to Tamil Nadu, the state I was born in and raised, that you will not find today, you will find it very difficult to spot a Tamil weaver, Tamilian who is a weaver on the Kanjivaram sari. I mean, that is the queen of saris. Okay? And it belongs to Tamil Nadu, but you will find it very difficult. Mostly it will be done by Padmashalis who have come in because the weavers of Tamil Nadu have given up on it. And I really, really think that this is one of the most incredible ancient weaving arts that should be bolstered, otherwise it will also die. That diversity of this country, the diversity within Tamil Nadu, those things we really need to. Oh, I should mention that you can walk out into the Pandi Bazaar and elsewhere today and buy a Chinese Kanjivaram sari, machine made, 1/4 the cost of your handmade sari, but who the hell wants a machine made sari? Yeah. But they are selling. They are going to further kill your Kanjivaram sari. The other reason, the third reason why we need to be speaking of rural India is because the media don't. Do you know that no major newspaper, no major channel has a full-time labor correspondent on its rolls anymore? When I came to journalism in 1980 September, every newspaper had a labor and employment correspondent. Okay? Not one now. Not a single newspaper has a full-time farming correspondent. They have what they call agriculture correspondent, a glorified individual who sits in Delhi and covers the agriculture ministry and sometimes only the agriculture minister. You know? But not farming from the perspective of the farmer, not from the fields, from the farms, from the mandis. They don't do that. If we are not going to talk about farmers and laborers, if we are not going to talk, we are making the statement, the media are telling you that 75% of the population don't matter. They don't make news, except of course at election time, when you have to start giving them some respect. Do you know what percentage of your national dailies give to the rural India on the front page? The average national daily, that itself is a joke, how you define national daily. National daily is defined as any newspaper that has one edition, even if it is the only edition, if it is coming out from Delhi. So that what comes out from there is national daily. The rest of us are anti-national. Yeah. So the average national daily in this country, the space on the front page given to rural India, 5 years average, 0.67%. 0.67% to 69% of the average, and even that is an exaggeration because 5-year average of 0.67% includes 1 year, which is election year, when rural India will be covered because that's where the votes are, unfortunately for those who rule us. You have to then, for the media, you then have to give us some space over there. Yet another reason, look at what happened to this country, how ill-informed we were and how ill-informed we remain on what happened in the pandemic. What happened in the pandemic? The biggest human migration seen in history, and the Attorney General of this nation stands in the Supreme Court on March 31st, 2020 and swears a sworn affidavit given to the Supreme Court saying, as of today, 11:30 a.m. March 2020, there is not a single migrant on the highways. Not a single migrant. 14 days later, the same gentleman gives another affidavit before the Supreme Court saying, so many hundreds of food relief centers have been opened for the migrants. Where did those migrants suddenly come from? Do you know how many people moved? On May 26, 2020, the Indian Railways put out a press release proudly boasting, and I'm all for the Indian Railways, I'm a big fan of railways, and they did a great job. They said between May 1 and May 26, the special Shramik trains, of, you know how many people they carried in those 26 days? 91 lakh. Almost 1 crore people in 26 days. Apart from that, millions and millions were on foot. Millions and millions were trying to take buses, get out in any way possible. And the media were simply asking, why are they going? You know, we're all such nice people. They should stay back with us. I think the migrant laborers made a very rational decision. They knew that nobody is going to look after them. They knew that. They knew that from their experience where they were brought up in the countryside, that nobody gives a damn. We were upset because we were losing our dhobi, our cheap labor, our servant lady, our gardener, our drivers, they were going back to their villages. And in fact, many of them told me, yes, we might die. We, in the People's Archive of Rural India, of which I'm founder editor, we focused on these people. We did 270 stories on livelihoods under lockdown. Many of them told me, yes, we might die, but better to die at home with the loved ones, amidst loved ones, than to die here amongst people who don't care for us. Yeah. So then you had the media asking the question, why are they going back? That was the wrong question. And it shows how little you know of the country. The real question was not why are they going back? The real question was, why did they leave their villages in the first place and come here? And the answer was 2 words, agrarian crisis. We never addressed, even today, where is that agrarian crisis in public discourse, which has seen 4 lakh farmers take their own lives in suicide? Your media are not serving you. They are not serving you. They are not serving the public. If they will not talk about rural India, at least let the rest of us talk about rural India. And, yet there are many more reasons why you need to be talking about rural India. Do you know that your constitution binds you? It binds you, the Constitution of India, which I take as the finest distillation, the finest essence of the freedom struggle, the ideals of the freedom struggle. It binds you to achieving justice for all, social, economic, and political. And it is not an accident, in my view, it is not an accident that the writers, the framers of the Constitution, put social first. It was a very deliberate choice. Social, economic, and political. And Tamil Nadu, and the other thing, what is the argument in the directive principles of state policy and in the preamble and in the fundamental rights? They are enjoining on you to build a great welfare state. My home state of Tamil Nadu has always sought to be in the forefront of both welfare measures and movements for justice. Yeah? And I think that it is absolutely imperative, when speaking of welfare state, just before this meeting, we were talking about it. I learned that the person who presided over the free breakfast thing is with us. I think this is a great scheme, and I think it is a fitting follow-up to the midday meal. I think this is the way to go. And to think that these are being denounced, these kind of actions and a number of other welfarist measures are being denounced as freebies, are being, doing your duty to the Constitution, to the promises and pledges of the Constitution of India. If that is for freebies, I want everybody to be for freebies. It is an absolute outrage that this sort of maligning of welfarism is going on. What is so important about free breakfast? What is so important about midday meal? Just consider, this is a nation that has fallen to rank 107 out of 121 in the Global Hunger Index. Rwanda is handling, which has had civil war and genocide for 10 years, is handling its hunger problems better than we are. Of course, immediately when this index, Global Hunger Index figure comes out, Government of India declares that it is a conspiracy against us. Then we are number 3 in the world in dollar billionaires. We did not have one before 91. Today we have $160 billionaires, which goes entirely against the spirit of the Constitution, which calls for mitigating inequality, not only for mitigating inequality, but for ensuring that the resources of the society are not concentrated in the hands of a few. And you have $160 billionaires on the Forbes list who own wealth as of October 2022, their wealth is equivalent to 24 to 26% of your gross domestic product. The top two billionaires, Mr. Ambani's personal wealth, if you look at the Forbes list, is greater than the GDP of Punjab, GSDP of Punjab. Mr. Adani's personal wealth is greater than the GSDP of Haryana. And you want to know, and should you be wondering why all those farmers were so angry with these two gentlemen who were being handed over the agriculture of these states on a platter? So you really have a lot of reason to talk about rural India. Apart from 107 out of 121 on the Global Hunger Index, number three on the billionaires list, and 132 out of 190 on the UN Human Development Index, on the United Nations Human Development Index, and worst of all, 180 out of 180 in the Environmental Performance Index. That means we are at the bottom of 180 nations in that index. The only index that the Government of India accepts as true is the Forbes index. How well we have done. An Indian is the third richest man in the world. So we are very proud of that. We need desperately to rebuild and to further build the welfare state that the freedom fighters, the freedom struggle, the Constitution of India envisaged for the people of this nation. And I think the justice must be our prism. Everything. I think when in my journal, you can talk about climate change, but in responding to it, we talk about climate justice. We talk about food justice. We talk about health justice. Look at what happened in the pandemic to people's rights to health. I want to draw this to a little close on the climate issue. You are Environmental Performance Index at the bottom, 180 out of 180. I think this is one of the issues of greatest urgency for policymakers and administrators, not making speeches at COP27. Please understand that Tamil Nadu is going to be one of the worst affected states in this. Coastal and peninsular India is already taking a big hit in climate change. It is taking a very, very big hit. And the most vulnerable peoples amongst you are fishing communities along the long coastline of this wonderful state. The fishing community, and many people don't believe it, don't seem to know that Tamil Nadu also has pastoral nomads, like the sheep herders who move between Tirunelveli and Thoothukudi. Okay? The ancient communities that have been around forever. It is quite frightening what it has already done to food production in many parts of the country. The wheat harvest in Punjab crashed with excessive heat. Yeah. It's interesting to me though that the ancient Tamils had a sense of the correct approach to agriculture. Not only in their divisions of land, classification of Kurunji and Mulai and Palai, not just that, but in understanding what crops are correct for what region. What crops should be grown where. All that has gone kaput in the last 100 years, and especially in the last 50, and severely in the last 30. You know, it becomes absurd if you're going to try growing paddy in Barmer because there is subsidy for paddy. It doesn't make sense. In Tamil Nadu, I really think, and it is very clear to me looking at the ancient Tamils and their literature, that they had a key understanding of what we desperately need to revive in our agriculture, which is an agroecological approach to agriculture. An agroecological approach. Consider that the ancient crops of Tamil Nadu, like ragi, these are, you find them embedded in Sangam poetry. You find 2,500 years ago, people were writing about something, which means that it had already evolved over a very long period. If we cannot restore agroecology to our consciousness, believe me, we are in serious trouble. You will not be able to build climate resilience in your agriculture, and I think we are running out of time. And I too am running out of time. So I will just say this. We approach it. I think that the most important part of the Constitution today is the directive principles of state policy. What it promised people, a vision of what this country could be. And I think combining that with your preamble and your rights, everything we do, a policy maker, if asked to use a single prism, do it through that prism of justice. Thank you.
So nowadays, a lot of talk is going about if we go more on the path of welfare state, we may end up crashing like Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka too had a lot of issues regarding giving tax breaks or giving a sort of free education, so sort of like that. And they did well in hunger index. But what happened is that their economy crashed this year, and because their debt levels have increased. Part of it is because of the Chinese debt as well, but part of it is because of the government fiscal policies.
Amul is one of the successful model. My question is, can we replicate successfully the Amul model in various sectors of the rural economy with active state participation in crop planning?